All right, I left off talking about the associates of Socrates. I now wish to pick it up and to finish this kind of opening video on the apology. Now, I mentioned that the key figure is really Alcibiades. Who is Alcibiades? Alcibiades is the famous traitor of Athens and one of the most fantastic figures to look at in antiquity. Essentially, Alcibiades is a military general and a military genius. He knew how to take Athens to victory in the Peloponnesian War. But the problem for Alcibiades was that he was basically too young when the war started. So initially, he was excluded from positions of power. And just when he was about to take over the Athenian army, there was an armistice signed called the Peace of Nicias that brought the war to a close for a period of 6 years, between 421 and 415 before the Common Era. Alcibiades was furious. He knew he would know how to defeat the Spartans if only he could get his hands on the Athenian army. And later historians who've looked at his military capacities largely think, yeah, he could have done it. I mean, he really had the capacity to lead Athens to incredible victory in this war, no matter how many foes they had in front of them. He eventually convinced the Athenians to restart the war by attacking the city of Syracuse on the island of Sicily, which was supporting one of the allies against Athens, um, uh, Corinth, one of the key Greek city-states arrayed against Athens. Now, Syracuse had a lot of military potential, but did not have much in the way of a standing army. So the plan of Alcibiades was to strike and to strike quickly before Syracuse was really able to develop and build up its army. Now, he convinced the Athenians to send a massive armada of some 200 ships, some 30,000 soldiers, the horses, to have cavalry, the supplies that you would need to feed the army. This is a huge undertaking, and to essentially send them out all the way across a good way across the Mediterranean from the Greek mainland over to the island of Sicily, south of Italy. Just before the fleet is about to embark, however, something strange happens, something perfectly extraordinary. It's called the vandalization of the Herms. The Herms are statues that the Greeks would typically put at the threshold of their property and also at important crossroads. They are representations of the god Hermes, who protects trade, commerce, travel, and is also the god of borders and thresholds. Somebody had gone around Athens and vandalized these Herms. Incredibly, the charge fell upon Alcibiades. This is extremely shocking for the Athenians. This would be like somebody going around churches and breaking the arms off crosses. And the fact that the suspicion fell upon Alcibiades would be something like this happening in England before the D-Day invasion, and the suspicion fell upon Eisenhower. We could not even imagine such a thing. So what happened here? Who really did this? We don't really know who did this. It's very doubtful that Alcibiades did it. It is possible, however, that Alcibiades had got very drunk. He did do that. And on his way home, he may have vandalized a few of these Herms. Following that, it is perfectly possible that some of his enemies, who feared that he was going to try to establish a dictatorship over Athens, took advantage of this to systematically vandalize even more of these Herms. Be that as it may, Alcibiades was not allowed to defend himself. There simply was not time. You had this vast armada, you had all the supplies, they were already on the ships. The fleet had to sail, so Alcibiades could not stay in Athens to answer the charges. He leaves with the fleet. In Absentia, there is a trial about whether, there's an investigation about whether or not he did this. And in the course of the investigation, they discover that he would have parties making fun of a major part of Greek religious life called the Eleusinian Mysteries. It's an initiation ceremony that's a big deal for the Greeks in terms of their religious beliefs. And Alcibiades would make fun of these. It was perhaps in bad taste. This convinced many of the Athenians that, in fact, perhaps he had done the vandalization of the Herms, and they decide to arrest him. They send a prison ship. They capture him on the island of Sicily, which he had already reached, and they place him on the prison ship to return him to Athens. Once Alcibiades is removed, the expedition uh, against Syracuse in Sicily turns out to be a complete catastrophe, and the army of Athens is destroyed as well as their fleet. This would not have happened under Alcibiades, but the whole military expedition was turned over to a man named Nicias, who simply was not up to the task. Alcibiades, however, is not brought back to Athens. He escapes. He bribes the guards and escapes to Italy, and then makes his way over to Sparta. Once in Sparta, he betrays Athens to Sparta, and he not only is the great traitor of Athens, he explains to the Spartans how to really defeat the Athenians. He explains to them where they need to place a fort in order to cut Athens off from its hinterland and its all-important silver mines. This is the fort of Decelea, which becomes a real thorn in the side of the Athenians. He also explains to them how to help the Syracusans against the Athenians. Essentially, he points out that they don't have to send manpower. The manpower is already there in Syracuse. They don't even have to send money. What they need to do is they need to send a general. They send a man named Gylippus in order to train the Syracusan army. And this is exactly what the Spartans do. He also explained to them that they needed to send Corinthian admirals to help the Syracusans build up their navy. Again, the money and the potential is there, it's just the standing army and the navy were lacking. And so by sending key figures to train them, they were able to help tremendously the Syracusans, first of all, meet the Athenian challenge and eventually defeat the Athenians in front of Syracuse, making the whole expedition a fiasco. So essentially, Alcibiades is not only going over to the Spartan side, he's explaining to the Spartans how to defeat Athens. Now, the rest of this is going to begin sounding a bit like a soap opera. I think I should probably make a short break here. Let's do this video in 3 parts, not merely 2. So let's go and stop part 2 for a moment, and then I'll re-pick it up with Alcibiades in Sparta.